Hey everyone, we're going to be releasing a new version of the Stripe Node SDK, and Annie, who's here from the SDK team, is going to tell us all about it. So, Annie, what do you have for us today?
Yeah. So we've made several improvements to the Stripe Node SDK over the past few months that I'm excited to share with you today. These improvements include easier out-of-the-box compatibility in serverless environments like Cloudflare Workers, native ES module support, and with the latest v12 major version, API version pinning.
Awesome. Well, let's head over to your screen and take a look at it.
So one of the things that we've improved in Stripe Node is its usability in serverless environments, specifically Cloudflare Workers. So for a bit of context, Cloudflare Workers are environments that allow you to deploy serverless JavaScript apps. Before you would have had to do some extra configuration to sub out node specific implementations used by Stripe for web compatible ones. So on my screen, I have a small template for handling webhook events in Cloudflare Workers. On my left is what you would have had to do before, which is to configure alternative implementations yourself, like the HTTP client when initializing Stripe, and the crypto provider when constructing events. So you would have also had to turn on the node compat option to get other node polyfills. But on the right, you can see that these configurations are no longer needed in Stripe Node. So now we do this implementation switching internally depending on your runtime environment. So there should be no difference in how you call Stripe across platforms.
Nice. So, like you said, if I'm building anything with like Cloudflare workers or any type of serverless type of thing, I could just use the Stripe Node SDK as it is, and I don't have to do any additional setup, which I think is great because if I take a look at what you're showing us right now, it's actually less code for me to write. And I'm a big fan of having less things to maintain.
Yeah, I am too.
Nice. Why don't you talk to us about like the ES module support you mentioned?
Yeah. So another area that we worked on is native support for ES modules. So the Stripe Node package now ships as a dual common JS and ES module package, which gives Stripe Node users access to the benefits of ES modules and opens up more feature work that depended on ESM support. So one nice side effect of this is that the Stripe Node package takes up less space in your bundle when imported as an ES module. Here I have a side-by-side breakdown of a bundle built with ES Build for a small project that sends a request to Stripe Node. On the left, the project uses the old common.js build Stripe Node. And on the right, we have a project that imports the updated ES module version of Stripe Node. And as you can see, the total size of the bundle has been reduced by over 60 kilobytes. And the Stripe Node package takes up around 30% less space in your bundle.
I think this is going to be particularly exciting for folks that are building applications that run in resource constrained environments, maybe like containers or something like that. So being able to have a little bit more space to run my application is going to be like a game changer for folks.
Yeah, so this is super exciting. And it also opens up several other streams of work. The first is better support for alternative JS runtimes like Deno that have some restrictions around ES modules. So, for example, this issue I have open deals with providing better type support in runtimes like Deno. So this is something that we like to support in the future and provide a better experience for users there. Another feature that we like to support for is tree shaking, which is a feature uniquely offered by ES modules and will help further reduce size that Stripe Node takes up in your project.
So I love how by default, the Stripe Node SDK is already saving me space in the bundle. But now with this particular feature, we're going to be able to save even more space for tree shaking. So again, like for folks that are building applications that need to go to places where I don't actually have a lot of space, like this is going to be great for them. And they're going to just have more flexibility when they're deploying their application.
Yeah, super exciting stuff.
Right. So I think there's one more thing we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so we just shipped a new major version of Stripe Node with an API version pinning feature. So if you aren't familiar with API versions, your API version controls the API and webhook behavior that you see. So every few months, Stripe releases a new API version named after the date that it was released, like the most recent one, 2022 11/15. Before, if you didn't specify an API version explicitly when initializing Stripe Node, Stripe would default to the account API version set on your dashboard. Some users found this behavior confusing because the version wasn't specified in code anywhere. It wasn't in your application code, and it wasn't even in Stripe Node source code. But starting with Stripe Node version 12, Stripe Node will default to sending the API version that was the latest at the time the SDK version was released. This means that when you upgrade Stripe Node to the new major version in your package.json, you'll also be upgrading your API version at the same time. This will make version upgrade easier to understand, help prevent your integration from accidentally falling out of date, and also help ensure that the doc strings and type you see in your IDE are accurate.
I think this is really cool because that means that anytime going forward that I update my Stripe Node SDK to whatever the newest versions are, I am going to get support for the latest versions of the Stripe API. So whatever that most up-to-date version is, that's what we're going to be supporting by default. So now the only thing that I'd really need to do is make sure that my actual Stripe account is set to, that corresponding API version, and then we'll be off to the races.
Yeah. Yeah. So to reiterate, when upgrading to Stripe Node v12, you should also upgrade your integration to use the most recent Stripe API version, which may be a more involved upgrade than any other major version upgrade you've done in the past. So for help with upgrading your API version, you can refer to this API upgrades page in our docs. And if you'd like to upgrade to Stripe Node v12, aren't ready to upgrade API version just yet, you can still override the API version manually on the Stripe client with the caveat that your SDK version, API version aren't going to be completely aligned.
Awesome. Annie, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about some of the new features that developers can expect in the new version of the Stripe Node SDK. And for those of you that are watching, definitely make sure that you head over to our docs, check out how to use our SDKs, check out our API versions, and just in general, so you can learn what exactly it is you can do with some of these upgraded versions of the Stripe API. Now, if you have any questions or concerns, definitely make sure you head over to our GitHub repo for the Stripe Node SDK. You can submit issues, you can give us some feedback, or even just let us know what you're building. I hope you upgrade and let us know how it goes.